Yi Xian was naturally unwilling and continued to burn his universe veins. He held the sword in his right hand and closed his eyes. His heart sutra circulated and countless universe veins burned around him. 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 6 million. When he burned to 10 million universe veins, the sword in his hand suddenly trembled slightly. There was movement. Yi Xian was overjoyed, and he hurriedly circulated the instant of invincibility. In next to no time, a faint sword light appeared around his body, and right at this moment, the universe veins that he had ignited were completely absorbed by his sword. Yi Xian quickly continued to burn his universe veins. At this moment he couldn't care about anything else. He just wanted to test the power of this sword. Yi Xian crazily burned his universe veins. Under the support of endless universe veins, the sword in Yi Xian's hand trembled violently. At the same time, countless tiny sword lights appeared on his body. These sword lights were like blood vessels. Yi Xian suddenly raised the sword in his hand. At this moment, those tiny sword lights suddenly gathered towards his arm. Soon, countless tiny sword lights followed his arm and entered the sword in his hand. At this moment he needed even more spiritual energy. Yi Xian didn't hesitate and continued to burn his universe veins. About 15 minutes later, Yi Xian suddenly stabbed forward with his sword and roared, "Open!" Boom. As the sword stabbed out, the spacetime in front of him suddenly split apart. Yi Xian's entire body entered it. In the next moment he appeared in a space of nothingness. Yi Xian was stunned. The space he was in was nothingness. It wasn't the river of time or the river of time and space. It was like it was independent of the universe. Moreover, he could see the universe he had entered from. Not only that, but from his position the universe he was in was transparent and illusory. Yi Xian looked at his body. At this moment, there was a thin layer of sword light on his body. It was like scales, extremely dazzling. Invincible? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then he took out the daebi and waved it at his body. The tip of the brush slashed onto his body. Boom. The tip of the brush shattered and he was completely fine. Yi Xian was stunned. In the next moment he laughed crazily. He was truly invincible. At this moment he was truly an invincible existence. As if he had thought of something, he suddenly looked at the existing universe outside. He slowly closed his eyes and in the next moment he suddenly pulled out his sword. In that existing universe, 4 afterimages appeared in one place. In the next moment, the 4 afterimages pulled out their swords and slashed. The 4 sword lights converged at one point. Boom. In an instant, that existing universe's starry sky was instantly destroyed. This wasn't the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was that the force was too strong. The powerful force instantly swept out for millions of miles. In an instant, the endless starry sky above the entire God's world was directly wiped out. Millions of miles of starry sky was destroyed by a single sword. Moreover, the remaining force continuously shook and cracked the starry sky that was millions of miles away. In an instant, it affected more than a dozen universes. At this moment, countless experts were shocked. Which big shot used this sword? Countless people began to investigate, but they found nothing. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly returned to the existing universe. When he returned to the existing universe, his entire body went limp like a puddle of mud. He directly collapsed. After unleashing that sword strike, he immediately collapsed. The power of that sword was far, far stronger than Daebi's. His current body wasn't enough to completely withstand it. At this moment, Su Tian appeared. When he saw Yi Xian, Su Tian was shocked. He hurriedly walked in front of Yi Xian and said in a trembling voice, "Young Master Yi." "You." Yi Xian smiled slightly. "It's fine. I'll rest for a while." After saying that, he just lay down and closed his eyes to rest. He didn't use the medicinal pill that his father gave him. That medicinal pill was too terrifying. It was better to save it for a critical moment in the future. After all, there were only 5 of them. If he used one, there would be one less. After all, his father didn't come every time. Next to him, Su Tian looked at Yi Xian with a face full of shock. He seriously suspected that the sudden wiping out of this part of the starry sky was done by this young Master Yi in front of him. However, was this young Master Yi only at the see-through realm? How could he have such terrifying strength? Su Tian was puzzled. Around 2 hours later, Yi Xian's face finally looked much better. He sat up and smiled bitterly. Needless to say, that sword strike was truly too terrifying. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian hurriedly looked at his spatial ring. When he saw the universe veins in his spatial ring, he was stunned. 30 million universe veins were missing. 30 million. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. In order to execute that sword strike, he'd actually burned 30 million universe veins. Why is it like Qingguan's sword? Does it rely on recharging? He also thought of something else. When he executed that sword skill just now, he didn't use the power of bloodline, world sword intent, and world power. Otherwise, its power might be even more terrifying. Besides that, he didn't display its true power just now. After all, he was just testing it and didn't use his full strength. In short, that sword strike was quite invincible. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Needless to say, his father was really considerate this time. He gave him money and a sword skill. And a box. With that thought in mind, Yi Xian hurriedly took out the box and sized it up. When I thought about this, I realized that when I saw those readers scolding me, I wasn't angry at all. Instead, I felt a trace of joy and pride. Look, they scolded me because they liked my book. Life was difficult, and there were many times when one had to look at a problem from a different perspective. Perhaps the result would be different. Chapter 23:38. Inside the hall, Shen Tian looked at Di Yuan silently. Di Yuan furrowed his brows when he saw that Shen Tian wasn't speaking. Suddenly, he sensed that something was wrong with the atmosphere and he raised his guard. Di Yuan hesitated for a moment before he said, "Realm Lord?" Shen Tian suddenly said, "You said that you have nothing to do with that young Master Yi?" Di Yuan hurriedly nodded. "That's right. My Imperial Desolate Divine Clan has nothing to do with him. My Imperial Desolate Divine Clan is willing to help the profound world." At this point he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression suddenly changed drastically. "Young Master Yi?" This mystic sky realm lord addressed Yi Xian as Young Master Yi? Right at this moment, Shen Tian spoke abruptly, "It's fine as long as they aren't related at all." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly flipped his right hand and pressed it down. In the distance, Di Yuan's expression changed drastically, and he blocked with both hands. Boom. Di Yuan's physical body was shattered, and his soul was gripped tightly by an invisible hand. Di Yuan stared at Shen Tian in disbelief. "Realm Lord Shen Tian, why are you doing this?" Shen Tian stared at Di Yuan and mocked, "You think you're so smart." Di Yuan spoke in a heavy voice, "Mystic Heaven Realm Lord, if you want to kill me, can you let me die knowing the reason behind it?" Shen Tian was expressionless. "Do you know who Young Master Yi is?" "Young Master Yi." Hearing these two words, Di Yuan was stunned. Shen Tian glared at Di Yuan and said angrily, "Someone I cannot afford to offend." As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve. Boom. Di Yuan's soul was instantly erased. Shen Tian looked coldly at the spot where Di Yuan had disappeared. "Idiot." Immortal Treasure Pavilion. Yi Xian opened the box. Inside was a small set of armor. It was dark gold in color and about the size of a palm. It emitted a faint light and it was glossy and mysterious. Seeing this palm-sized armor, Yi Xian frowned. "Armor?" At this moment, the black armor suddenly transformed into a black light and surged into his glabella. Boom. In an instant, Yi Xian's eyes widened, and two rays of blood-red light shot out from his eyes. Chi-chi. The two beams of bloody light pierced through the river of stars and disappeared into the depths of the boundless starry sky. At the same time, Yi Xian's whole body trembled violently, and the mad demon bloodline in his body was directly activated at this moment. Moreover, the burial sword in his hand was actually trembling violently at this moment as if it was about to be completely activated. Yi Xian was horrified. What the hell? Yi Xian hurriedly began to suppress the power of the bloodline in his body, but he soon discovered that thin scales had appeared all over his body, and on these scales there was dark blood flowing slowly. His mad demon bloodline was actually unable to suppress this dark blood. As he spoke, he suddenly pressed his palms together. Bang! In an instant, an enormous vortex suddenly appeared behind the ninth young master, and then an enormous phantom that was almost 3 kilometers tall silently appeared. At the instant that this phantom appeared, a monstrous aura suddenly swept down. At this moment, the expressions of the ancient god realm experts in the distance instantly changed drastically, and they retreated explosively once more and left this part of the starry sky. The pressure it emanated was sufficient to crush them into pieces. Fu Yi and the others looked at the ninth young master with astonishment. The ninth young master was an ancient god realm expert as well, but the strength he revealed at this moment far exceeded the ancient god realm. Fu Yi and the others gazed at Yi Xian with worry. At this moment they couldn't interfere. In the starry sky, the ninth young master looked down at Yi Xian. His eyes were indifferent as though he was looking at an ant. Yi Xian's expression was calm as he opened his palm, and the sword burial floated silently in his hand. The ninth young master looked down at Yi Xian. "I'll bury you with a single punch." As the sound of his voice faded, he punched downwards. Behind him, the huge illusory figure suddenly punched downwards. With this punch, the Qin world and the surrounding universe started to crumble bit by bit. It was too powerful. The numerous universes weren't able to withstand the strength of this punch at all. In the distance, the expressions of Fu Yi and the others changed drastically once more, and they retreated explosively. This time they retreated completely out of the Qin world. At this moment they were extremely shocked in their hearts. Even though they were ancient God realm experts as well, they were really like ants before the phantom's punch. It was truly too terrifying. Everyone retreated explosively and didn't dare to approach this region. Fu Yi and the others were also filled with worry. Would young Master Yi be able to withstand such a terrifying punch? If he couldn't, in the starry sky, Yi Xian looked at the fist sweeping down with a calm expression. The fist was getting closer and closer, and at this moment he felt a terrifying pressure that could destroy heaven and earth. He had to admit that ordinary ancient God realm experts were really like ants before this punch. Yi Xian was also a little shocked. They were both ancient God realm experts, but the gap between them could be so big. Obviously, there were a lot of fake ancient God realm experts. The fist was getting closer and closer. As for Yi Xian, his expression was still as calm as ever. Finally, the fist directly hit Yi Xian's head. But Yi Xian actually didn't dodge or counterattack. Rumble. In an instant, a terrifying force erupted from where Yi Xian stood, and a wave of air swept out for millions of miles. The entire Qin world was instantly erased from the universe. However, nothing happened to Yi Xian at all. There were cracks on the folding fan and they were caused by Dedeabi. However, Dedeabi hadn't been able to destroy it completely. Meanwhile, Dedeabi's voice suddenly resounded once more. "It has nothing to do with me. You're the one who can't bring forth the full strength of this clone of mine." Yi Xian was speechless. In the distance, the ninth young master stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Only now did he realize that he couldn't do anything to Yi Xian. Yi Xian's defense was too monstrous. However, it was also difficult for Yi Xian to kill him. Yi Xian looked at the ninth young master, his right hand gripping the sword in his hand. He was hesitating whether to use instant of invincibility or not, but in the end he chose not to. Ever since he broke through to the ancient God realm, he had been longing for a battle to his heart's content. His current realm was unstable, and a battle was the best way to help him stabilize his realm. With this thought in mind, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, revealing the Zhongjian sword in his hand. At this moment, he madly urged the mad demon bloodline in his body. Along with the activation of the mad devil bloodline, the burial sword in his hand suddenly started trembling violently. In next to no time, strands of terrifying evil energy and killing intent swept through the surroundings, and it didn't take long for the starry sky and the surroundings to transform into a sea of blood. In the distance, the ninth young master frowned. "This bloodline force of yours is a little interesting." At this time, the Zhongjian sword in Yi Xian's hand shook violently, and a sword intent swept out. Mortal World Sword Intent. When this sword intent appeared, Yi Xian was shocked to discover that it was not blood red. Moreover, this sword intent showed signs of suppressing his bloodline force in the Zhongjian sword. What's going on? Yi Xian was dumbfounded. He noticed that his sword intent seemed to be stronger than before. It can grow on its own? At this time, the ninth young master's left hand slowly clenched into a fist, his right hand tightly gripping the fan in his hand. This fan was entirely black in color, made from an unknown material. On the front of the fan was a picture of a ferocious-looking demonic beast, and on the back of the fan was a large golden character, "Defense." At this moment, this fan was actually repairing itself. In the distance, Yi Xian collected his thoughts. He looked at the fan in the ninth young master's hand that was slowly repairing itself and frowned. "Brother Bai, do you know what this fan is?" Dedeabi did not respond. Yi Xian suddenly missed Xiaota. After Xiaota, when Xiaota was around, he was not so bored and lonely. Now there was no one to talk to. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. A blood-red sword light tore through the battlefield. At the moment when Yi Xian disappeared, the ninth young master's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly opened his fan.